So we have two stories this week that are kind of murder mysteries, Neutron Star and Barnacle Bull. Barnacle Bull is the story of a ship that's trying to get through the asteroid belt to survey the outer solar system. And the backstory is that every previous ship that has tried to fly through the asteroid belt has disappeared. And they've lost touch with them, and nobody has any idea what happened. So this story is following, in real time, these astronauts trying to deal with the problems that develop. And the first thing is that they lose contact with Earth, and they discover that these barnacles are growing on the outside of the ship. There's also more radiation than they had predicted, which is very dangerous over long periods of time. And the asteroid belt itself is different in that it's full of very tiny grains of sand, which are realistic because those are the kind of things that produce the meteors or the shooting stars that we see in the sky, or most of them are just tiny grains of sand. And so that kind of stuff is floating all around in the solar system. And so as this story develops, it's exciting as it's sort of a first contact story because they're actually found alien life, which is suddenly growing on their ship, but they also figure out how to use that alien life, and so it becomes a symbiotic system in that they are living with the barnacles and the barnacles are helping them to survive.
So the moral is to, not fear alien life, which is a theme that has appeared and will continue to be a part of the literature about first contact. This story, I think, is also useful to compare to Neutron Star to try and look at how you create tension in a plot. Outer space is hostile. We learned that in the very first story that we read. But how do humans react to stressful situations? How do they interact with aliens? And how do they use science to improve their situations? And how do they save their lives in both these stories by figuring out a physics problem and identifying a solution to that problem? So we have both human ingenuity, but we also have the really important aspect of understanding the environment and reacting properly to it.
The second story, Neutron Star, is literally a murder mystery because the ship goes out and comes back and the two occupants are dead. They're not just dead, they've been ripped apart and are just sort of red blobs. And this is a problem because the people that make these spaceships, which is an alien race known as the puppeteers, consider this to be very bad advertising. And because there's nothing that's supposed to be able to get through the hulls of these ships. If you're inside these ships, you're supposed to be safe from anything. And so they hire this guy who happens to be down on his luck and owes a bit of money, and but who is a very good space pilot. And he tries to recreate their voyage, which goes very, very close to a neutron star. And he figures out the problem because it is, in fact, a physics problem. And as he's flying, recreating, it's a very nice story where they describe what's happening to him as he gets closer and closer to the neutron star. And what happens, of course, is that it's not just the huge amount of gravity from the neutron star, but it's the tidal forces that are created where the difference in the gravitational force between one side of the ship and the other is so great that it can actually pull a body apart, or spaghettify it, as we call it in physics.
That's pretty gross, Jeff.
And so he figures out how to survive by keeping all of the parts of his body equidistant from the neutron star, and so he's able to come back and ask the very difficult question to the puppeteer, saying that he thinks he knows that they don't have a moon around their home planet because we with the moon know all about tides, and they didn't seem to think of it.
And it's important that the puppeteers don't want anybody to know where they live. They're kind of hiding out and trying to protect their privacy and their security from the not-so-friendly humans. But in these two stories, look at how point of view is portrayed. How and why do you sympathize with the human character? How do you identify with him? And how do you feel those tidal forces? How is something that's completely invisible to us described in a way that you yourself also understand it? And to make a quick jump, you're also going to read a short story called When It Changed this week. And this story also is very important as first contact, but it's a very unusual first contact, a first contact between human males and human females on another planet. Look carefully at this point of view and see if you can figure out what's going on in the story. I should have said spoiler alert, but it's still a great story. So look at how it's constructed.
They're all three are great stories, I think.